want to talk about Derwin James.
Yep.
Getting his suspension upheld this week after the high hit he delivered to Pat Freiermuth this past weekend because of a pattern of behavior. The NFL says, we actually went back and watched some of them this morning. And it's fair to say, but the strike zone for a guy like Derwin James is just higher than the NFL wants right now, I think is an accurate assumption of seeing his previous few years and the hits he's had. What do we think of this, though? Because obviously now the Chargers going into the Chiefs this week, no Derwin James,
like what we
maybe
say.
no Justin Herbert,
probably.
no Rashawn Slater, no Joe Alt, maybe no Joey Bosa.
Yeah.
Does the NFL just love the Chiefs here?
We'll get back to the Chargers in a minute, and that's going to be a fun one to talk about, Chargers Chiefs. But we got to talk about this guy, Derwin James.
Yeah.
And we took a look at all the penalties this guy's accrued over the course of the last few years. And the first thing I want to say is I love the way the guy plays football.
100%.
We love the way the guy plays football. And you were talking about him meeting the challenge of playing the Steelers
For sure.
and matching their intensity. And that's what he did. He was out there doing that. Now, the most recent hit, the one that is in question recently, the reason for the upheld suspension is because it was probably the dirtiest looking one, the one that ended up looking like it had intent to the head and neck area. The other hits that we see is a guy going same knee, same shoulder. He's playing the game of football the way that football fans love it to be played. Big hits. I don't think it's intentional, but the one thing that you and I noticed, he never really goes low, which we can appreciate.
And we can appreciate it because I've talked to many receivers, I'm sure you have in the league, and they say it all the time. I'd rather you hit me up high than down low. Case in point, I think Kirby Joseph was from the Detroit Lions. A lot of receivers don't like him because he does go low. And we saw a few tight ends go down. Matter of fact, I think it was Tyler Higbee last year in that game.
Stafford said, "You're dirty."
He went low. So, like, Derwin James is going high. And again, maybe you don't like the intent and where he hit you. And I get it, right? We're trying to protect everybody's brain because, there's life after football, obviously. But to your point, he was playing the Steelers, synonymous with being a physical team. He wanted to match that intensity. I don't think there was no ill will towards Pat Freiermuth at all. I just think when you look at the rest of the game, he was just flying around the football field. Like, he literally was the guy that was popping out on tape versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I get it. You're trying to make the game a lot safer. But again, when you talk to a lot of receivers, and I would question the NFL to go do this, to have these conversations with receivers and ask them, like, when you're coming across the middle, would you rather get hit up high or would you rather get hit up low? For the majority of receivers I've talked to, they say, always hit me up high.
Yeah,
right?
it's like
because
interceptions too.
And again, you want to protect your brain, right? But a knee literally can cost you 2-3 years or maybe even your career.
Yeah, and when as an offensive lineman, I remember turnovers, sudden changes, where an offensive lineman goes from watching the pass to turning and become a safety. Sometimes those defensive linemen, they light you up. You don't see them coming. And what better opportunity to get back at a guy who's been trying to block you the whole game than to light you up. I always appreciated the guys that went high instead of going low because our biggest fear, we wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night thinking about our legs getting chopped. So you get hit up high, you live to play another down, and you can run back off the field and say, man, that was close.
Yeah, this is why I love this pod, because one conversation can take you to something else, right? You were talking about guys going low, right? And they've outlawed a lot of those blocks in regards to offensive linemen. Now, they can still cut on the backside as long as a defensive lineman isn't engaged with another one, right? The thing that irks me as a defensive lineman, right? Cornerbacks used to be able to chop down offensive linemen. I know you used to hate that when you got out of the pool in space, right? So now you're talking about a 185 to 200 pound guy literally taking on a block from a guy that's 300 plus pounds, maybe 320
moving
in space,
at an illegal speed in a school zone.
But yet on a split zone, a tight end that weighs 250 pounds can go low on a defensive end that's 250 pounds. It's utterly ridiculous. My thing is, if you talk about player safety, make it equal all the way across the board. Right. I saw one hit this past weekend from a tight end on a split zone that I ain't gonna lie, I probably would have got a penalty after that play because that was a punk move by him doing that. Like, the ball was going the other way and he came back on a split zone because he didn't want to stay up high and block, and he cut the defensive end when the defensive end was looking at the tackle going down. Like, that's ludicrous to me. My thing is, you want to get mad at Derwin James for hitting guys up high? Take those blocks out of the game as well.
You know what? And the reaction to a lot of these low hits from defensive linemen, and we've seen it in years past. We saw a tight end tear his knee up because of a reactionary cut by a defensive lineman, saw split zone, cut the tight end. Now he's on the ground, and now everybody's got their hands up in the air. Maybe just get rid of it at the line of scrimmage.
Correct. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because literally we would talk about that in the meetings, right? If they're going to continue to cut us on the backside,
cut their ass.
First play, you set precedent. You go cut him. I guarantee that tight end stays up the rest of the game.
It's funny that the same conversations are being held in both the O-line and the D-line rooms the night before the meeting. First play of the game, we are going to cut him so hard. He'll never forget it for the next 70.
I do, though, think it's an interesting conversation that,
we got a tangent.
they're trying to improve player safety. This is what it is. They're trying to change the strike zone, but it really is only hurting defensive players' pockets.
100%.
Right? There's no offensive players getting these suspensions. No one does
Come on, leave us alone, man.
I'm just saying, like, they
already care about points scored.
Get it tilted that way, and then for all the fines, all the suspensions, like, it ain't the offensive guys who get these suspensions. So I do think, next CBA, whatever,
because the game wouldn't happen without offensive linemen and receivers.
Get on the horn, get in there and complain, because you guys are being targeted by the NFL right now. But I do think, for Derwin James, just if you go back and you do watch, like, they are trying, right or wrong, to remove the high strike zone.
Correct.
It's not necessarily, coming in violently with the shoulder. It's coming in with that shoulder to the head and neck area. And so, with as much as he's done it in recent years, that's why
it's a trend.
Yeah.
But same knee, same shoulder. It's just a clean football. It's a sweet football hit. It's what they tell you to do to trap people too.
The guy that upholds those suspensions and looks at them might have been questioned as the dirtiest player ever. That's why I think it's, again, you can change. Obviously, he's grown. He realizes some of those things he did when he was playing shouldn't be allowed in the game right now. But it's just crazy to me to think that, and I got no ill will towards John Wayne. It's just funny that he's the guy.
He's an OG. He's a triple OG, but he played
making the decision.
He played a different millennium of football than these guys are playing now, and he's in charge of dishing out the punishments. And
he would have been. Yeah, he would have been out of there.
The meme is like this. The meme that I always see is this guy is in charge of upholding the rules, and it's him like absolutely spear diving over a pile into somebody's chest.
After the play was
over. Different game, but it is funny though that it happens right before the Chiefs game, of course. And so just more fodder for every fan that thinks.
You mean the number one in the Pete Prisco power ranking Chiefs? Yep, that Chiefs game.